In your darkest hour, who do you become? What happens when years of hard work result in failure? Do you assign blame? Do you ever doubt yourself? Do you decide to leave? Senegal's football team has faced hundreds of such situations. Their modern footballing story, which began in 2000 and continues to the present, is full of them. It's a story about crisis leadership and sticking by your chosen family through thick and thin. It's a story about outcasts and the amazing things they can accomplish when given a handshake in a community. But, mostly, it's a story about Teranga. Teranga is difficult to describe. It's neither a feeling nor an action, but the BBC defines it as generosity of spirit and sharing of material possessions in all encounters, even with strangers. Teranga is a way of life for millions of Senegalese people. It is the warm reception of visitors. It is the exchange of love, food, and information. It is the living embodiment of acceptance and help. It's unclear what football coach Bruno Metsu thought of Teranga when he took over as manager of the Senegalese national team in 2000. He'd just returned from a wild coaching stint with Guinea, rife with missed opportunities and broken promises. By all accounts, he was growing tired of the football world. But Senegal welcomed him, and Metsu, a French outcast, a former player dropped after one game, a coach roundly rejected by his European counterparts, found his feet again. Metsu later told the French newspaper La Voix du Nord that his work in Senegal reinvigorated him. Metsu received, understood, and brought Teranga to his Senegal team in spades, whether it was in his vocabulary or not. Senegal is a stunningly diverse country to begin with, and the Senegalese diaspora in Europe meant that national team players came from as far away as Dakar and Dieppe. Teranga became a critical means of uniting a dispersed team in this multicultural environment. Metsu, a French immigrant, made it clear from the start that there was no time for squabbling over who came from where. In his squad, there would be no other. Teranga would be the only option. What is Metsu's secret? Allow players to be people. Call it leadership through radical acceptance. Metsu helped his players become more disciplined than ever before by reminding them that they were allowed to have fun. Metsu and Senegal needed every ounce of mental strength they could muster to get through the early 2000s. Senegal were knocked out of the African Cup of Nations in the quarterfinals by an unexpectedly ascendant Nigeria in 2000, Metsu's first full tournament in charge. When the tournament returned in 2002, Metsu and Senegal had two objectives: beat Nigeria and win the entire thing. Senegal did deliver a hefty dose of retaliation to Nigeria by knocking them out in extra time in the quarterfinals. However, the tournament final against a talented Cameroon team was not so sweet. The game was tense, and it ended up going to penalties. Diouf, frustrated and nervous, missed his shot. Captain Aliou Cisse, a quiet, thoughtful defensive midfielder, also missed his last kick of the game. Cameroon won the game. Senegal was devastated. It's fascinating to reflect on that game now, knowing what was in store for all of these players as a direct result of their AFCON failure. Because the World Cup was just a few months away in Korea and Japan, and Senegal had qualified for the first time in their history, the defeated squad had only months to rally and prepare for the tournament of their lives. Metsu needed to choose a World Cup captain quickly. In a stroke of managerial brilliance, he stuck to his guns and hired the least likely candidate, Cisse. Cisse was not the most gifted or popular player on that Senegal team, and his last kick failure against Cameroon could have led to his exclusion from the squad entirely. Metsu, on the other hand, saw what extending Cisse's leadership opportunity would mean to his players. That failure is an opportunity to learn, and that bouncing back is always possible. Metsu, crucially, saw something else: Cisse's mind-boggling intelligence. He was the type of player who was always curious about the why behind every training and coaching decision, amassing a massive neural network of tactical if-then models. Metsu knew that no one would benefit more from a captaincy than Cisse, and he trusted that those who receive will give back. It was pure Teranga at its finest. Metsu was not let down by Cisse. Even traditionally spiky players, such as Diouf, respected the defensive midfielder's stoic authority. Metsu intuitively understood that direction was superior to dictation and that his next-generation leader did not need to be a carbon copy of him in order to succeed. Whereas one could be loving and carefree, the other could be disciplined and intellectual. Metsu, the empath, allowed Senegal to enjoy matches. Senegal's game-time backbone was provided by Cisse, the general. Senegal gained ground between their AFCON defeat and their World Cup debut. They defeated Ecuador on the road and drew with Guinea before departing for South Korea and Japan. Their first opponent will be France's defending world champions, Les Bleus. France was unconcerned about the match because Senegal was making its World Cup debut. Senegal, on the other hand, saw it as an ideal opportunity to demonstrate their mettle to the rest of the world. France were not only world champions, they were also Senegal's former colonizer, and the tie carried significant cultural significance for Metsu's men. The Senegalese team channeled that energy into their match preparations. They were the only team in Korea-Japan that was completely open to the media. Journalists were welcome to drop by their hotel at any time to speak with players and ask questions about the country and its culture. Several of those reporters noticed something odd. The Senegalese players weren't behaving like they were about to make their World Cup debuts. They pretended to be friends at a sleepover. There was no stress in the Senegalese camp when France and Senegal took the field a few nights later. France fielded an outstanding lineup that included Emmanuel Petit, Thierry Henry, and Patrick Vieira. They were, however, nervous from the start, tentative, brittle, and unsure. Later, the BBC slammed them for being patient to the point of being pedestrian. Senegal, on the other hand, were far from it. They started with a defensive 4-5-1 formation but burst forward within 10 minutes to fire a warning shot past French goalkeeper Fabien Barthez. They pushed forward with real bite, and they took control of the game's pace, with Captain Cisse marshalling the team from the back of the midfield. France had a few good attacks. David Trezeguet hit the crossbar in the first half and looked dangerous down the middle. Senegal, however, won the game, with Papa Bouba Diop breaking through in the 30th minute and sliding a perfectly pitched shot into the French net. The 60,000-person crowd erupted. The French team was unable to respond, possibly due to jet lag or simply being caught off guard by the strength of their opponents. The French players shook their heads in disbelief as the final whistle blew, while Metsu and his team celebrated. The Lions of Teranga were pleased, but not surprised. Diao had said it best, they would never lose. The rest of Senegal's World Cup run in 2002 is now history. In what is still regarded as the greatest World Cup debut of the modern era, they advanced all the way to the quarterfinals. They didn't do it through deception or by isolating themselves from the rest of the world. They did it using Teranga. Their run was full of small moments like this. Mistakes followed by an arm around the shoulder, failure transformed from fear to victory. It was an alchemical process. Metsu left his position shortly after the World Cup, and he died young only a few years ago. But it was his faith in Teranga, and his decision to stand by his men in their darkest hours, that bore the most fruit. Senegal returned to the AFCON final this year. Sadio Mane, their star player this year, missed a crucial penalty. It didn't matter this year. Senegal was victorious. And who was the manager ecstatic about on the sidelines? Aliou Cisse is now one of the most well-known names in African football. Cisse and Metsu are still as dissimilar as they were in 2002. Cisse remains a taskmaster, with a tough training sensibility and an academic bent. But both men have always understood the value of Teranga and are dedicated to improving their footballing community. Teranga's Lions are fierce but generous, unyielding but fair, charming but sympathetic. Cisse and his African champions will ride into Qatar this year hoping to capitalize on their distinct culture to achieve further World Cup success. It would be foolish to wager against them. It almost doesn't matter what happens on the field when Teranga turns struggle into community and community into strength. They will win regardless of the outcome. Together,